to this tutorial on how to build a team for competitive Pokemon, the official competitive, which is double battles. But there are some differences between the official format and the double format that you play with inside the game. For example, you can only bring 4 out of your 6 team members to a battle. And there are also both a species and item clause on your team, so you can only bring 1 Pokemon of each species and 1 item per team. It is to encourage creativity, since it would be pretty boring if every Pokemon had the same item at all times. That would make for some very boring teams. There's also different seasons, I guess you could call them. They're called regulations officially, in which some Pokemon are banned and some are not. For example, here we have Regulation Age, where there are quite a lot of Pokemon, but not that many. And then there are, for example, you can see here there are no Dialga, Diancie. A lot of these legendaries are not allowed, since they are in Regulation Age. But if we go back to here and change G, here we can pick for legendaries like Dialga, for example, or Eternatus, or Calyrex. But I'm going to talk about Regulation Age, but this applies to all formats. There are quite a few ways to build a team, but you usually build it around a certain strategy or gimmick. For example, you might build it around a wheezing neutralizing gas, which disables abilities. Or you might build it around a sun team, or let's say a rain team, which you usually use Pelipper with the ability Drizzle, which forces rain when the Pokemon is switched in. Rain makes water attacks stronger, and fire attacks weaker, and also activates certain abilities. A good thing to begin with is usually to have cores for your Pokemon in your team. So you usually might have like a water, grass, fire. You see, they cover a lot of each other's weaknesses. But there are other types that do this as well. They still just a water and grass. They synergize with each other pretty well. And they cover each other's weaknesses pretty well. You could also have one based around like a gimmick. So you might do like let's say a rain team again, Pelipper, and then you do like a Swift Swim Kingdra, since this boosts the user's speed in rain, which Pelipper summons. So they synergize pretty well together too. When selecting your item for Pokemon, there are a few things to consider. I'm just going to open up another team that I've built in preparation. I built this team. So for this Pokemon, Torkoaler, I chose to use the item Charcoal, since this is an offensive Pokemon, meant to deal damage, and with the move Eruption. And then and because of that, I chose an offensive item to hold. I also could have chosen like a Choice Specs, which boosts special attack, since this is a special attacker. It could also have chose like a Leftover, maybe. That is a very strong weapon, like an Expert Belt. Could have chosen that. It's usually this is an offensive Pokemon, and you usually want offensive items on offensive Pokemon. Items that boost the user's attacking. Might have chose like a Choice Scarf to boost speed, depends. You could also choose a defensive item, but that's more not really recommended, since you usually want to. There are certain, if you want to survive like a certain attack, you might use like a berry that works kind of like the Babiri berry, which halves the damage from a super effective steel type. You might use on this like a that halves damage from rock type or ground type attacks, something like that. Or especially if you have a Pokemon with a 4 times weakness, like for example the Sneasler, you might want to have a berry that halves the damage from psychic attacks, so it doesn't get one shot by every psychic attack. You can also, for like a support Pokemon, you usually want a more defensive item to make the Pokemon survive longer. You might want like an Eviolite if that's possible, or like an Agua berry that boosts survivability. On the specific one, I have a Rocky Helmet, which forces Pokemon to not really want to attack this indeedy. Pokemon don't want to attack it. That makes sure it lives longer, so it's a more defensive item. EV spreads and natures. If you look at this Torkoal, for example, EVs, or something called effort values, are a type of point that you can put into your Pokemon to increase their stats. So for example, if I put more points into special attack, that increases the Pokemon's special attack by a bit. But HP, it increases its HP by a bit. Nature are also a thing, which boosts a Pokemon's stat. Nature, for example, Quiet here, boosts a Pokemon's special attack by 10%, but in turn lowers its speed by 10%. There are quite a lot of natures here. We can see that there are natures that increase and increase one stat while decreasing another. So there are 24, since it's 6 times 6. And there also exists some neutral natures if you don't want to lower one stat, which usually isn't ideal, since if you check the nature you usually want to go for, nature that lowers the attacking stat the Pokemon isn't using. For example, this one is a special user, with all of these moves being special. So then we pick a nature that increases our most wanted stat, which in this case is a special attack, and decreases our attack, since we won't be using that stat anyways. Which is usually how you want to do it. But for example, on the Pokemon Torkoal here, which is meant to be a Trick Room Sweeper, which is in effect that reverses the speed order so that the slowest Pokemon go first, we want to use a speed lowering nature, so we can go faster than even other speed lowering other Torkoals or slow Pokemon in Trick Room. Yes, when selecting moves, you usually want to use moves that, first of all, that correlate to the attacking stat that you're using. So this is a special attacker. We want as many special attacking moves as possible. So for example, we have Eruption here, which is one very powerful fire type move. We have Earth Power for some coverage. Yeah, stab moves. You usually want a move that is the same type. You usually want moves, at least one of every type, that your Pokemon is. So for example, this Lilligant here is both a grass and fighting type. So we have one grass type move for stab, and if you don't know what stab is, it stands for same type attack bonus, which means that if an attack is the same type as the Pokemon that's using it, then that boosts the move's damage by 50%, which you usually want to have stab attacks for that. So Pokemon, you usually want at least one attack for every stab you have, every type. So here we have Solar Blade and Close Combat. Then you can also have some coverage moves. For example, here in Torkoal we have Earth Power to take care of other fire types, because our team is pretty weak to fire, with both of these being weak to fire. You usually want at least one coverage move. It isn't necessary. You could also go for her, like 2 status moves. You went with Sleep Powder here for just being able to disrupt and slowly run it down, and also after you to make sure that this can act even in lack of Trick Room. One thing that you also might consider instead of status move is a priority move, which usually goes first. It has priority over other moves, which are in a lower priority bracket. Priority does not, Trick Room does not affect priority moves, so even if your Pokemon is slower, even if your Pokemon is faster in Trick Room, this Sucker Punch, for example, a priority move, always goes first in Trick Room even, which is useful if you want to finish off low health Pokemon. When deciding moves for a supportive Pokemon, you usually want some useful supportive moves. Like, for example, Trick Room here, which most of our team is based around. When selecting supportive moves for supportive Pokemon, you usually want a supportive, at least some supportive moves. For example, we have Trick Room here to make sure that this is the whole thing that our team is based around, is Trick Room. We also have Follow Me to redirect moves from this Torkoal, so that it doesn't get hit as often. We're also using Helping Hand to boost the attacks of Torkoal, which is always really useful. And then on supportive Pokemon, you always want to have at least one attacking move to not be susceptible to the move Taunt, which forces the Pokemon to use an attacking move, and not means it cannot use a support move. So if you do not have any support moves or any attacking moves, you will be forced to use Struggle, which, on top of also just doing nothing, also makes you deal 25% of your max health, HP in recoil every turn, so you're dead within 4 turns, which is always really bad, since you don't want your Pokemon to die. I think that covers the basics of building a team for competitive Pokemon, or the official format. Thank you for watching.